Hey guys, and welcome to Ozzie Reviews, and welcome to November Q A. Now guys, we'll start off with what's new here at Ozzie Reviews. So just as I'm doing the filming for this, I've actually ordered 200 of the brand new Ozzie Reviews Gen 2 rifle bags. So they're on pre-order now guys. There's only 200 of them, so I'm pretty sure that they will sell fairly quickly because they are really popular. I've sold hundreds of these bags and had 100% positive feedback on them. So if you do want to get in and get one, the price is $119 now. Unfortunately, I've been charged triple for shipping from what it was with the previous order earlier on in the year. So there's not much I can do about that, unfortunately. Everything is going up across the board. If you do want to get some of the bags at the old price, I do have the M4 bag, the pistol bag and the Gen 2 shotgun bag still in stock, ready to go. The pre-order on the rifle bags, we're hoping to get them in around about Christmas time. So no promises that we can get them to you by Christmas, but definitely by early January 2023 at the latest. So if you want to have a look at that, as I say, aussiereviews.com.au/shop is where you can have a look at that and the other bags that we've got in stock. All right, so what else is new? So we obviously had a great response to the two various shotguns that we did. We did the Buckmaster and we did the Bushmeister review. Now guys, very popular, and I will say this, there were a handful of negative people basically running away with their tail between their legs, giving up and saying, well, what if the antis see this and all the rest of it? Like, I'll answer that now. They already know that these exist. You've got to remember that the government has registration, so they obviously know what sort of platforms are out there because they have to approve them for registration under various categories. So it's not like it's any secret there. So, unfortunately, like I said, there's a handful of people who just really disappoint me by just throwing in the towel before anything has even happened. If there was any proposed restrictions on those actions, how about we all join together and actually fight? Now that'd be a change, wouldn't it? So that's all I'll say on that. So also too guys, I've got a couple of different reviews coming up in December. I've actually bought a cryovac machine, or cryovac machine that's actually single phase, but a really professional one. So I want to show you that as well, because there's a lot of people who enjoy cryovacking different foods and everything, especially when you're out hiking on the trail. So that's what I like it for. So I'm going to show you that, a couple of different rifle reviews and things like that. So we've got a few different things in the pipeline there, so keep an eye out for it, and then obviously into the new year we'll keep going strong as we can. Okay, so the first question I've got here is from Keegan, and he says, hey Ozzie, hope you're doing well. I'm wanting to set up my first deer rifle and looking at getting a Sauer 308 or 30-06. It seems good quality and a good price. Any other suggestions for a sub $2,500 budget? Mate, I'm assuming, are you talking rifle and scope, or which model of the Sauer are you getting there? But anyhow, look, I'll give you a couple of suggestions here. One that really stands out for me if you want to keep to a budget, but you want something that is ridiculously accurate and just a pleasure to shoot, and that's Tikka. Especially if it's a deer rifle. So if you're going to be going on long hikes, then you've got the option there of like a super light, a lightweight. There's various different models there, so you're not going to get weighed down out in the field. A lot of people say, oh, but they only come with a 3-round or a 5-round magazine, depending on which one you get. But yeah, but if it's for deer shooting, then really that's all you need, because if you fire that first shot, then they're going to obviously scatter once that happens. So yeah, have a look at the Tikka as well, mate. You can have a look at different rifles too, like CZ. I mean, they make rifles in 308. You might find something there that you like, but my money for something, a really good quality deer rifle, I'd probably go Tikka if you want to keep to that budget. But have a look and let me know how you go. Next question I got here is from Darren. He says, hey Ozzie, will you do a review on the Templeton T2000 button release Or have you used it, or have you got other mates who have used it? If so, any comments on this? No, I haven't at this stage. However, I have got one in the works coming. So keep an eye out for it, mate, because obviously as soon as I get it, I'll be very keen to review it. Next question I got here is from Michael, and he says, "Hey Ozzie, Shooters Union have recently published a video on the issue of depression and the tragedy that unfolds because of the way that licensed firearm owners are unable to speak about it without incurring the wrath of the registries. I've heard many horror stories from people who have been victimised for simply calling beyond blue. Can you speak for a couple of minutes on this?" Sure, mate, I certainly will. I mean, when I did the video about the fit and proper person test that weapons licensing were bringing in, I mean, there was always a fit and proper person test. However, their new interpretation of it was what was being brought in. Now, when I did that video, this is exactly what I spoke about. And if those of you who haven't seen the video, go back and have a look. And those of you who haven't seen the Shooters Union video, I'll just basically elaborate a little bit on it now. So in that, Graham Park was interviewing a lady who's now a widow because her husband was suffering depression and refused to go and get help because he knew that he would lose all his firearms. So he did commit suicide, but obviously not with a firearm. You know, it's a terrible, terrible story, a terrible tragedy. However, in that video that I did, I spoke about this exact thing, and that was my prediction, saying that you will have licensed shooters who are that frightened to go and get help, and then what will happen is you won't be able to see people who do have issues with depression, and it might only be small, the start of it, but because they refuse to get help because they're so frightened they're going to lose their firearms, which a lot of times for those people, that's their outlet. That's what brings them, you know, back down into you know, feeling relaxed and just the balance of getting out there and enjoying some hunting or some shooting on the weekend. You know, I mean, you speak to any health professional, just because someone has depression doesn't mean they're suicidal. Doesn't mean they want to go out and harm other people. So this is the argument that I have, is why should licensed shooters be treated with such scrutiny above and beyond any other person in the community? Like, there's no other group of people in the community that get treated with such scrutiny, in my view. And this is the result of what happens. They're that frightened to go and ask for any help, and then they end up committing suicide. This perhaps could have been prevented if this guy was allowed to actually go and get help without the threat of losing his firearms and going through all the arguments and everything like that. I mean, you know, geez, look at Shooters Union. They were talking about, you know, a lady who had cancer. You know, and there was a show cause from weapons licensing suggesting that she's not a fit and proper person due to having cancer. Another lady who had postnatal depression 20 years ago. My thought on that was, well, how are they accessing those records? Surely it's not from My Health, because that wouldn't really be allowed, would it? Surely not. So anyhow, so to answer your question there, Michael, yeah, I think it's disgraceful. Why can't shooters be treated like any other person in society? If you have mental health issues, you should be able to seek help, in my view. And there is no way that anyone should be taking your firearms off you, unless, of course, you're a threat to yourself or you're a threat to others. I mean, if you ring up like Beyond Blue or something along the lines of that, and you were saying, I just hate the world, I'm so down, I'm so depressed, I just want to kill everyone. Well, of course, there's going to be obligations on behalf of that call taker to do something about it. In my view, so there should be, because none of us want to see people being innocently killed. However, when you've got someone who's just suffering depression and they're no threat to anyone else around them, or even themselves, and they just want help, well, I believe that they should be given an opportunity, or multiple opportunities, to talk about their feelings and be able to get a lot of things off their chest and hopefully extinguish what is only a little fire before it turns into a bushfire, so to speak. Next question I've got here is from Teresa. Hi Ozzie, I'm wondering if we will ever be able to use suppressors in Australia to help with hearing protection. In Europe, it's essential to have a suppressor. I'm in Victoria, and is it possible to apply for one if you're not a professional shooter? Keep up the good work. I really enjoy your reviews. Well, I appreciate that. Look, I don't know the laws off by heart in Victoria because obviously I'm in Queensland. However, it seems to be the common theme around Australia that if you're an occupational shooter, then you can access suppressors under workplace health and safety. So in other words, if you're a farmer or a firearm instructor or a contract shooter, then you'll be able to access them. I disagree with that completely. I think it should be across the board. I mean, you look at New Zealand, okay, they have the mosque shooting there. You know, after all the laws, all the restrictions that came after that, they still have suppressors. And they're still freely available and there's no issues. And that's just across the water in New Zealand. And like you said, in Europe, they're just, it's almost like neighbourly. If you're not shooting with a suppressor, you'll have neighbours complain, well, why are you making so much noise? It's just utterly ridiculous in my view that they should be prohibited and banned here for just general use. I mean, you can't do anything with the suppressor without the firearm. So if the person's licensed, the firearms are registered, what's the issue? You know, from the government's point of view. I have not heard one credible argument from powers to be on why they should be, you know, continue to be prohibited here in Australia, because catch up with the rest of the world. You know, in some of the most restrictive places, they still allow suppressors. You know, like you say, in Europe, look at some of the gun laws there. They're very, very strict, but they still allow suppressors. So it has to change in my view. You know, I've been saying that as a licensed shooter for many years, and honestly, I will continue to argue that point. Next question I got here is from Jack, and he says, "G'day Ozzie, what's your thoughts on the 222 Remington? My father grew up on the land and it was his go-to rifle. I know it had a record for the smallest group for a long time, and most of the old timers prefer them over a 223. Why do you think this caliber has become less favourable these days?" Mate, honestly, the cost. So, you know, 223 has taken over because obviously once it became a military round or 5.56 NATO, there was just so much of it made. And, you know, people enjoyed that little bit extra velocity. And when you compare the two, there's not much in it. There's really not much between the two of them. I actually like the 222. From a reloading point of view, I mean, it's certainly got a longer neck on it. And a lot of people will argue that it's a lot easier to reload over 223. I think it's like anything, mate. It's like, why is 6.5 Creedmoor so popular now when we've had the 6.5 by 55 Swedish Mauser for many, many decades? I think just times changed. I think that's what it comes down to. 223 is certainly a good caliber, but yeah, the 222s, very, very accurate. I remember seeing them in CZ and also in some of the old Anschutz rifles, and I tell you what, geez, they were just like an absolute laser. Like, they were so accurate. So yeah, I agree. And I also agree with, you know, a lot of the older shooters definitely love them. And for that reason, because a lot of the guys on the properties here in Australia for many, many years before 223 became very popular, the 222 was the go-to. Next question I got here is from Aaron. He says, "Hi Ozzie, I'm looking to purchase a top quality rimfire that will last and can eventually be handed down to my children. I've been looking into the Anschutz 1761 Classic 22LR, the right-hand version. The rifle will predominantly be used for plinking, for rabbits and the occasional target bench shoot on the farm. I'm looking for a rifle that will be an all-rounder. There are so many options available when purchasing a rifle, including triggers, barrel length, running options, etc., and I don't know where to begin. If you were buying the Anschutz 1761 as an all-rounder, what options would you pick from the following and why?" So the options are triggers. So we've got two-stage trigger and also a single-stage trigger, but both of these come in two options of heavy and light. So let's start with that. So the heavy is 1.7 pounds to 2.6 pounds. So in other words, 800 grams to 1200 grams. Or we've got the lightweight one, which is half a pound to 1 pound. So in other words, 250 grams to 450 grams. So for me, I would definitely go for the heavier trigger. I mean, and that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it, when you're talking about something from 1.7, you know, to 2.6 pounds. I mean, for me, most of my hunting rifles, I like to have it about 2.5 pounds, especially like 22s. I've always had my Anschutz rifles at that. I find the other, mate, like that's all right if you're going to be bench rest shooting and you just want the absolute lightest trigger ever. For me, I would definitely go for the heavier one. As for the single or two stage, that really is a personal preference. I like both of them, but for different reasons. Now, with my rimfires, I have to admit, even when I was, you know, using the Kid Custom, like the 1022, you know, I had the two-stage trigger, but I also had the single-stage trigger. I ended up preferring the single-stage trigger at 2.5 pounds. That was my go-to, because when I was out in the field and I was shooting, I just wanted to be able to bring it up to the shoulder, and it had a nice light trigger pull, you know, not too heavy, but not super light. And I didn't really want a two-stage trigger with that. I found the two-stage wasn't really to my liking, you know, in a rimfire. So yeah, so that would probably be my preference. I'd go for a single-stage trigger, you know, and have it set at around about that 2.5 pounds. Okay, so moving on, the next thing you asked about here is the barrel length. So we've got 20.3 inches or 515 millimeters. We've got 18 inches or 457 millimeters, and we've got the 14 inches, 356 millimeters. So look, I wouldn't worry about 14 inches. I think what you'll find with Anschutz with that one, usually it's threaded for a suppressor. So that's why it's so short. So then when you add a suppressor to it, you know, it's not too long in overall length. The 20 inch, yeah, like, look, that's fine. You can go for 20 inch. But really you're not going to have any real advantage over like the 18 inch. I think the 18 inch would be perfect for what your needs are. It's going to be a little bit lighter than 20 inch. That rifle in general for Anschutz is fairly lightweight, but in general terms, it's not that lightweight. So I'd probably go for the 18 inch there and just save that little bit more weight there. Now, as for the muzzle, so you can obviously get the recessed muzzle, or you can have it threaded. Now, for the threads, there's two different sizes there. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if you want to run a muzzle brake on it, because that's pretty much all you can do here in Australia unless you're licensed for suppressors, look, it really doesn't matter. I would probably not even worry about getting it threaded, to be quite honest. So I'd just go with the recessed muzzle on that one, mate. So 18 inches, recessed muzzle, single trigger, heavy trigger. I hate to say that, as I said. Yeah, the single stage, that would be the way I'd go. You're going to have an absolute beautiful rifle there, mate, that's going to last for many, many years, and you will really enjoy shooting it, that's for sure. So yeah, let me know how you go. I'd be very, very interested to you know, see how you find it once you get it, and you know, what you think of it. Okay guys, so that concludes this month's Q&A. Thank you to everyone who's submitted their questions. And as I say, keep an eye out for those new reviews just around the corner, and we'll catch you on the next Q&A.